All right, guys, welcome back to Burt's Basics. So today we are going to try to be focusing on diseases and disorders of the blood. So this is the diseases and disorders that we will be focusing on. Now, I'm going to take a time out here because I'm just telling you, if you guys recognize these words, we should be okay. So let's just take one word at a time. So let's start with a or un. Whenever you have a or un in front of the word, that means without. And then we have emia, referring to blood. So anemia is lack of blood. That's what it directly translates to. But I need you to know more than that. I want you to know this. Sorry, I just got a new pen and tablet. See how good I do today. This is a red blood cell specific problem. Red blood cell, red blood cell, red blood cell. So now we come over here to hemolytic. Okay, heme is the same thing. Heme is blood. And lytic, I like to teach is rip your face off. But in med term, it's to dissolve or to destroy. So hemolytic is destruction of blood. And we have up here of a newborn. Once again, I need you guys to really understand that this is red blood cell specific. Okay, coming over here, we got heme and phile or philia. Philia means to love, and heme is blood. So this is blood lover. Okay, that doesn't make much sense. But if you look at it this way, how about you love to bleed? So this one is definitely a problem with clotting. So if it's definitely a problem with clotting, it's not going to be red blood cell specific. So let's put maybe this in a different color. Let's go ahead and call this a platelet problem. Okay, so that's what we're going to do is a platelet problem on this guy. Now, when we got this guy, this is leukemia. Okay, when we're talking about leukemia, leuco is white and emia is blood. So this is definitely going to be a problem with your, whoa, that's a horrible W, your white blood cells. Okay, mononucleosis, you should understand that the monocyte is one of your 5 white blood cells that we learned about. So this is also going to be a white blood cell problem. Now let's do my last one. Polycythemia. Well, poly means many. Okay, so there's just many. Cyth is another name for cyto, which is another name for cells. So then we have many cells in the blood. Okay, once again, though, this is one that's highly, highly, highly specific. So let's go back to the same color coding I've been using. This is also red blood cell specific. So let's go ahead and talk about each one really quick. Okay, so anemia. Now, there's 2 problems that we can have with anemia, guys, that we got to make sure that we can understand. So with anemia, we can have either a problem with production of red blood cells, which would be this one over here, right? So we can have a tough time producing them, or we can destroy them too much, or make them just have a problem with just losing them, okay? So these are different types of anemia. Remember, anemia means lack of red blood cells. Now, I'm not going to ask you questions on the specific types of anemia because there's quite a few. So let's go ahead and talk about these and we'll get to the main ideas. So let's go through them. Okay, hemorrhagic. Well, if you're going to bleed to death, well, then you are going to die from anemia. Okay, you guys remember hematopoiesis from skeletal muscle, or sorry, from bone marrow. That's making of blood. So we have pernicious, where I just don't make enough blood. Okay, then there's also these different ones in here. I don't want to talk about too many of them, so we'll just skip past those. Okay, I do want to talk about some of these, like this one, sickle cell anemia. You make it incorrectly, so that's a problem. So you can see there's a lot of different types of anemias, but the biggest thing I want you to know is anemia is a lack of red blood cells. So if I'm losing red blood cells, you know that red blood cells' #1 function on the planet is to carry oxygen. So whenever we have an anemia problem, we're going to have low oxygen to the tissues, okay? I guess we should have talked about this one. This was really common nutritional anemia. That just means you're not getting enough iron or different things in your diet, vitamins, stuff like that. But every time you guys hear about anemia, I need you to understand that it's lack of red, low oxygen, low oxygen, low oxygen, low oxygen, okay? Okay, let's do my next one. Okay, my next one is hemolytic disease of a newborn. Now, this one's kind of crazy, okay? If you guys remember, when we talked about plasma, we talked about these free-floating protein sticks. And these free-floating protein sticks were called antibodies. So the question of the day is, how in the world could a mother with type A blood have a child with type B blood? You understand that is possible because mother could be AO, dad could be BB, okay, dad gives a B, mother happens to give the O, So now the mother is having a child with a different blood type than her own. What we found out is when we talk about these antibodies, okay, you have a barrier here, okay, being the placenta or the womb, okay. The ABO antibodies cannot get through. Okay, I guess there's no O antibody, but the AB antibodies cannot get through. But what we did learn is that the RH antibody can get through. So whenever we talk about hemolytic disease of a newborn, we're really focusing on the RH antibody. So now let's go ahead and talk about why this could be so dangerous. A mother is negative. Now remember, when we got positive coming up against negative, positive is dominant. So the only way a mom can be negative is she literally has to be negative, negative. That's the only thing that she can have, okay? Let's say dad is positive, positive, and they have a child. Well, that means the child's always going to be heterozygous, and the child will always be positive. That means if we zoom in on these babies' red blood cells, the baby's red blood cells are all going to have an RH antigen on it that mom has never seen before. Now, what happens is the first pregnancy, mom's not ready for it. So if we kind of scroll down a little bit, you can see this is the first pregnancy here. So baby comes out, yippee skippy, and that gives mom time to make RH antibodies, getting ready for it for the next time. Because remember, mom's negative. None of her cells should have an RH antigen on it. They just shouldn't. What happens is dangerous. It's child number 2. Child number 2 is positive again. Mom's still negative, but now she has a whole army of these RH antibodies that she created from the last time she had a child. And these RH antibodies can get through the womb, and then it will destroy the red blood cells of the baby. So this is why they call it hemolytic. That means literally destruction of blood cells in a newborn. Now on this one, remember, we can fix this. There's something you can have to try to help you with this. I think you guys should recognize this. Oh, I guess it's on the last slide. I'm going to go back. If they're not sure, a female can get what's called a Rogram shot, which is actually really fun to study. It basically tricks the mother into not making these antibodies for her child. So I could ask you on the question, who in the world would ever get a Rogram shot? Well, it's got to be the mom must be negative, and she must be having a positive child, and it's going to have the biggest impact on child number 2 or later. That's kind of the combination. Because remember, if the mom is positive, then this doesn't even matter. Because then if the baby's positive, she'll recognize it as their own tissue. And if the baby's negative, then it doesn't even matter what, let me go back to my pen. Sorry, I'm just, like I said, I'm playing around with this. If the baby's negative, there's nothing to hold on to anyway. So the biggest thing that we have to have is we have to have a mother who is negative having a child that's positive so the RH antibodies can come and get it. The only thing is it takes a while to build up those antibodies, so it's basically the second child that does it. Okay, so this is a red blood cell disorder because remember, it's hemolytic disease of a newborn. It's actually going to destroy the red blood cells of the baby. Okay, polycythemia. Okay, this one's not too bad if you understand midterm. So let's midterm this word again. Remember, poly means many, cyth means cell, and anemia means blood. So this is a disorder when we have increased red blood cells. So I really want you guys to understand that this is going to be red specific as well. Okay, red specific, polycythemia. And it says a disorder where the hematocrit is significantly elevated above normal values. I'm going to argue that everyone living in Utah has a small case of polycythemia based on our elevation. Okay, so we can have more red blood cells, but then it can contribute to increased clotting, hemorrhaging, elevated blood pressure. There are some consequences of polycythemia. So let's look at polycythemia as the exact opposite of anemia. Okay, all right, hemophilia. Do you guys remember when we have this? Now, I'm drawing a lot, so wish me luck on my new pen. Woo! Okay, remember how we talked if you get a broken blood vessel here? There are 3 stages, 1, 2, 3, you have to understand to get this. The first one was vascular spasms, where it was going to make the muscles contract. The second one was your platelet plug, okay, to help fill in. But then to go from your platelet plug, you have to then go to coagulation. But to go to coagulation, you need things called clotting factors, which are going around in your bloodstream, okay? Hemophilia is a hereditary disorder, means it's passed on, where blood has a tough time clotting, generally due to lacking of clotting factors. Okay, that means they bleed and they bleed and they bleed. My best friend growing up has hemophilia. And one time I broke his nose at Crystal Hot Springs. I'll tell you that story in class. It was a crazy story. But lucky for us, in his backpack, he had an injection. And that injection had the clotting factors he was missing. We gave him 2 injections to try to help his nose stop bleeding. We ended up having to call an ambulance because he would not stop bleeding. It was insane. I remember growing up, he'd get a paper cut, and I'm not even kidding. A paper cut would bleed for like a half hour. Most paper cuts don't bleed for more than a second, but his would bleed forever. So hemophiliacs, lacking of clotting factors. So let's argue that this guy is going to be more of a platelet problem. Now, it's not really a platelet problem per se. It's more of a clotting factor, but I want you to associate it with platelets instead of red and instead of white. Okay? Okay, this is a normal blood smear. So you have red blood cells over here. Okay, you have this one's a white blood cell because notice it has a nucleus. So this would be a white blood cell. I really can't tell if this is agranular. I need an R in there. Agranular or granular because I kind of need to zoom in a little bit more. It looks agranular to me. And then you have platelets, which are hard to see because they're tiny. Remember, platelets are just cell fragments, so they're going to be in here somewhere. So what happens if you're working in the lab and you do a blood smear like this? Now, your first instinct should be like, wow, this is an increased number of white blood cells. That must mean this guy's in trouble. Well, it doesn't mean necessarily that he has leukemia. It just means he could be sick, okay? The more you guys get comfortable with this and the more you get in your training, there is actually an associated number with each form of sickness. Okay, so for example, if someone has like tuberculosis, then there's a certain number of white blood cells we would expect per cubic millimeter for someone who's facing that disease. But what now we're going to talk about is the almighty leukemia. Okay, leukemia is pretty scary. There's different forms of it, so you have to study which one you want. But we know that leuko is white and emia is blood. So and if I ask anyone in class ever what leukemia is, they always say, oh, that's too many white blood cells. You're forgetting a key part in that. The blood cells are released before they are ready. So how about from now on we say an increase in immature white blood cells? That's probably a better definition of leukemia. And I Googled advanced leukemia, and this is what it came. This is a lymphoma case. So I just wanted to show you what it looks like. There's no question about it. White blood cells, leukemia, pretty scary. Now remember, all white blood cells are made in the bone marrow. So this is where we talk about a bone marrow transplant to talk about what we could do with that. I just thought that picture was absolutely terrifying. So that's leukemia. So this one we're definitely going to put in with the white blood cells. Okay, so there's leukemia. It says malignant disease forming in tissues, uncontrolled production of immature. That's your sentence right there. I need you to master immature white blood cells, because if you just say elevated white blood cells, I'm going to argue that's okay because then you can fight off infections. The problem is when you get elevated white blood cells, then it can outcompete against the red blood cells, which is a problem. Okay, infectious mononucleosis is the last one on our list. Okay, you guys should recognize it by these 4 letters right here. Mono. Okay, this is an inflammation of white blood cells. Everyone thinks this is monocytes. It's actually lymphocytes that tend to get infected, and it's caused by a virus. And so this is the question I'm going to ask probably right here. Epstein-Barr virus. Now you get it. Everyone always thinks you get it from smoochy. I don't know how you spell smoochy. Smoochy. That's an E on the end. Most of the time people get it from sharing water bottles. Okay, so it's transmitted in bodily fluids that you can go from one to the other. It affects lymph tissue. White blood cells go pretty crazy, and it causes fatigue and flu-like symptoms. And if you go to the doctor, which I'm guessing most of you had mono, there's only one thing they're going to tell you to do. They're going to tell you to rest, because there's not much you can do. The biggest problem is that your lymph nodes, including your almighty spleen, get to the size of Texas. So our biggest fear is we don't want you to do anything massive to rupture that spleen, because that would be pretty scary. Okay. All right, that's it. All right, guys, thank you for watching Burt's Basics. Sorry I was playing around with my pen, but I needed to do it sometime just to see if I like it or not. So you have now finished unit on blood. Congratulations. Please come back and watch it many, many times. Thanks for watching Burt's Basics. See you on the flip side.